I'm Linda Bathgate, publisher of communication at Routledge, and I'm here today with Denise Solomon and Jen Tice to talk about their new book, Interpersonal Communication, Putting Theory into Practice. So I want to say thank you very much for meeting with me today. This is Denise, this is Jen, and we're going to get into some of the elements of their textbook and talk about how they put the book together and how it's going to be appropriate for students. So first off, let me ask, what motivated you to write this book?
Well, first, Linda, thank you so much for giving us a chance to talk about our book. We're really excited to have it available for adoption, and we hope that we'll help people teach their courses more effectively. Way back when I thought about the idea for this book, it was really a desire to bring what I love about the interpersonal communication discipline to students in the introductory class. Jen and I are both active communication researchers, and we're devoted to our discipline. And my feeling was that the books that were available at the time really didn't translate what was so exciting and interesting about interpersonal communication research into the classroom, and they didn't do it in ways that were accessible to students. So my primary motivation was to bring so much of what I love about the interpersonal communication discipline into the classroom for students who are just embarking on their study of interpersonal communication.
Now, was it a mutual, how did you get Jen to join you on this endeavor?
Well, Jen was my PhD advisee, first at the University of Wisconsin, where her degree is from, and when I moved to Penn State, she came as well to continue working with me for a while. So I told her she wanted to have a degree. She was going to have to work on this. Now, Jen is a fabulous teacher. In fact, her very first year in graduate school, she won a university-wide award for her exceptional promise as a teacher. And we have enjoyed many years working together in the classroom and as researchers and talking about teaching. So when I was looking for some additional help to actually bring this project to fruition, it was a really easy decision to invite Jen to join me. She'd have to explain why she said yes.
It was a great opportunity to work on a book that I thought had a really great vision to it, and hearing Denise explain why she wanted to teach this book and the void that it filled in the discipline in terms of having a book that exposed students to research ideas and to theoretical ideas that are important to us as a discipline, but still make them accessible in a way that students can understand and embrace and really apply to their own lives. Sounded like a really interesting project and something that I'd be a fool not to be a part of. So I was very grateful to be invited onto the project, and I've enjoyed working with Denise to build out the pedagogical elements of the book and to think about how we can meet students at a place where they can really learn about us as a discipline in interpersonal communication and also think about how these concepts relate to their daily interactions.
I should say, too, we really wanted to have a book that spoke to the desire that teachers have to have a skills-oriented course on interpersonal communication. We certainly know that interpersonal communication skills are critical for success in your personal relationships, in your work relationships, in your interactions online, in your interactions in the workplace. And so we didn't want to disregard that really important function of this course as building students' skills. But for us, it was an easy matter and an obvious connection to link those skills to what we were learning from our scholars and our colleagues in the communication discipline. So we took the putting theory into practice part of this book very seriously. We wanted to make sure that our recommendations were grounded in the best science and the most contemporary science on interpersonal communication. And I think we make that science accessible within the book. But certainly the putting into practice, the bringing that science into concrete applied suggestions to help people be better communicators is a really essential part of the book.
Yeah, it sounds like it's got a really functional approach that's really going to help students become better communicators.
I agree.
So you're well aware that there are many interpersonal communication textbooks currently available, and many of them have gone through multiple editions. How is your book going to be distinctive and stand out and do something different in this marketplace?
Well, there are good books out there by people that we respect, and I think they serve different functions than I see our book serving. As I look across the array of options, it seems to me that there are some books that emphasize more the theory side and talk about different theories of interpersonal communication, and then probably a greater number of books that focus on the skills side and give specific advice about how to improve interpersonal communication skills. What we tried to do in this book was to bring those two pieces together. And so throughout our book, you'll find skill building tips, but they're tied very closely to the theory and research that generate them. So within every section of the book, you'll learn about the content information on a topic, and then directly right at the end of that section, you'll get 2 or 3 or 4 tips for how to translate that content into practical, concrete activities that you can use and employ to improve your interpersonal communication. So for us, we didn't want a book that didn't attend to skills, but we didn't want a book that didn't attend to the theory. And so really bringing those together in a way is something I think that's unique about this book.
Another piece is that a lot of books will have a specific context that's their touchstone throughout the book, so that they'll touch to culture, or they'll touch to health, or they'll touch to relationships, or competencies, for example. And instead of having one single touchstone in the book, we wanted a book that integrated all of those ideas within every chapter. So we've organized the book in a very functional way that moves from kind of basic aspects of individuals that we bring to interaction, and those are the foundations and the building blocks that people use in all communication interactions, regardless of culture, even though it's pervasive, regardless of relationship status. And from there we move into how interactions are organized and the various processes of communication. And then we focus on relationships in a unit and how they develop and how they grow more intimate. And then we look at the goals that people have in their communication. And throughout all of these sections in our book, we touch to culture and we touch to technology and we bring in research about health, so that we don't have a single touchstone for the book, but that we touch to a lot of different contexts and integrate a lot of different areas where interpersonal communication is relevant to the communication that people enact.
I think one advantage, too, about being a new book in this market is that we come from a place that is informed by our contemporary environment. So some of these books that have been in production for longer periods of time might have a boxed feature, for example, on gender and communication or culture and communication, or even a boxed feature on technology and communication. And I think that when the interpersonal communication discipline was kind of first becoming more cognizant of culture and communication, or trying to raise students' awareness of the importance of culture and gender and communication experiences, having these called out boxes in each chapter perhaps made a really important statement in featuring those. But we write in a time in which there's a widespread appreciation for the role of culture and gender and communication experiences, and to treat technology as a different, somehow unique and distinct venue for interpersonal communication feels false now, because I have an 11-year-old son, and for him, texting is how he communicates with mom. It's not some special kind of interpersonal communication. So rather than having boxed out discussions of technology and communication, or communication and health, or communication and culture, these discussion topics are throughout our book. So every time we're raising an example or trying to unpack a research finding or to share a tip, we turn regularly to examples from technology and communication, health and communication, workplace and culture. So all of these topics just become woven throughout our book, because I think now we're in a place where we all understand that these are all parts of interpersonal communication and they don't need to be set aside. So we're fortunate that people have laid that groundwork before, and our book reflects a different place in time.
So you've really put together an integrated approach to studying interpersonal communication.
I believe that's true.
So given that it is an instructional textbook, what kind of materials have you included in the textbook to enhance the students' interaction with the text and to help instructors teach with the book?
We have numerous activities that are within the book itself, and then we also have a companion website that offers additional tools for students, and a separate website that offers additional tools for instructors. I have to say, actually, I think that this is a strength that Jen and I have. As teachers, we both engage our students in a variety of active learning exercises, and one of the things that we enjoy doing together when we've been at the same institution has been thinking of ways you can create an exercise or an activity to drive a point home. So we have built those throughout the book in a lot of different ways. Within the chapters themselves, we included things that students can do on their own to engage the material and enhance their learning, or instructors can draw upon those to create journal assignments or class activities or unit assignments. So there's a lot of different ways in which instructors and students can pull things out of the book as pedagogical devices that will help them learn the material. Some of these are as simple as what we call pause and reflect boxes. There's about 8 or 9 of them in each chapter, and they ask a student to stop in the course of their reading and reflect on the material. We pose a question that allows them to apply it, to think of a time when they've been in a situation where these ideas are relevant, and it just asks them to take a little bit moment and process the material a little bit more deeply than they might if they're just reading. We have another feature called the Communication in Action box, and those activities ask the student to suggest that the student go do something to observe communication in operation. Now, some of the communication in action boxes send them to the companion website. So you might be instructed to go find a form or complete an exercise that is on the companion website. Maybe keep diary entries over the course of a week on your communication experiences and then reflect on them. So they're very active kinds of experiences for students to learn from. And again, an instructor could assign those as an activity to complete before a class discussion, have students complete them on their own and write about them within a journal. There's lots of different ways you can draw upon those. Or students can just decide on their own that they'd like to engage that material through doing that at further exploration. And then probably the how do you rate boxes. I know our students always really like these. We've always used these kinds of self-assessments within our classes. So, you know, there's so many that I can vividly remember students responding to. But for example, the listening style self-assessment. People are so shocked to learn that people listen in different ways.
Right.
That some people listen for the big picture and some people obsess about details. And of course we all think everyone listens like we do. So when they do the self-assessment and then we bring them back into the classroom to talk about their differences, there's always an engaging conversation about those. But we find that students just really like to do these self-report tests that kind of give them a sense of how they rate compared to other people in the population. So those are available as call-outs within the text, and the forms themselves are on the companion website. Also within the chapters we have a box feature called Inside Communication Research, where we try to describe in very accessible terms a specific research study on the topic. And so we've selected some of the most interesting research that we think is out there to show them the kinds of things that people can study when they're doing communication research. I'm sure I'm leaving some out, Jen.
Well, all of these things are organized on the companion website, like you said, and one thing that you didn't mention are the scholar spotlights. So within each chapter, we have a call out about a particular scholar in the discipline, and if the students go to the companion website, there'll be a small bio about that scholar and an interview that's been videotaped with either Denise or I interviewing that scholar, many of which we did at conferences and hotel rooms and whatnot. But it gives a very personal look at who those scholars are and shows the students who the people are in the discipline. And so the companion website is really organized to complement the course. So on the student side of the website, they'll find things like the scholar spotlights, they'll find forms for the communication and action boxes, they'll find forms for the how do you rate exercises. We'll have flashcards and study aids for them to help organize the information. And then on the instructor side of the website, we'll have a number of resources that are available to instructors that really complement the text. So we'll have a test bank of multiple choice questions, we'll have some PowerPoint slides with a lot of the figures from the textbook that could be easily inserted into a lecture. But we'll also include a list of group activities that you could do in the context of your course that Denise and I and many of the people we work with have tried and tested in our own classrooms, and we know that they work to generate discussions and really get the students engaged in the material. So we'll have a number of activities that can be used in the classroom. I know a lot of instructors are starting to use more multimedia, so we've also generated a list of clips from movies and television shows that will help to illustrate some of the ideas that are in the book. Which also, on the student side, there's also a list of additional materials that they could go peruse if they wanted to in terms of books, websites, movies, and TV shows that students could go watch and engage with if they are interested in a particular topic in a chapter and want to learn more about it. So the companion website is really set up as a great resource for instructors and students alike as they're taking this course or teaching this course to complement the material in the textbook. You certainly wouldn't have to use it, but it's there as a really great resource of ideas that Denise and I have used in our classrooms before when we've taught this class. We'll have some sample syllabi to help people get started. And so really just some good recommendations for instructors who want activities that complement the book very well.
That sounds like instructors will be able to hit the ground running and really have all the tools at hand to start teaching the course right off the bat.
I think so.
You know, there's a lot of flexibility in the kinds of materials that are available, but for somebody who wants to find a syllabus and find how we have suggested and have used in the past some of those materials, it's very easy. You can step out of the box and do it. But then there's also enough room if you want to play and mix it up and change how you use the materials in the book to change the assignment structure, to respond to different kinds of learners in your classroom. There's flexibility to do that as well. One other feature that's in the book is a set of exercises in each chapter to develop discussions around communication ethics. We talk about communication ethics in the very first chapter as part of our definitional foundation in understanding interpersonal communication. And then at the end of each chapter, we propose a series of 3 different kinds of activities for exploring communication ethics. Either one is a thought exercise, which describes a situation and asks people to think about what they would or should do in that circumstance. The exercises also give opportunities for how you might collect materials and analyze the communication ethics. So, for example, one activity we suggest is to go to a local health clinic and pull brochures that are designed to give health advice to families or individuals, and to look at those brochures and think about what kinds of assumptions the material makes about the recipient. Does it make certain assumptions about their social class? Does it make certain assumptions about their access to health care? And to think about how those messages are creating a certain kind of, or projecting a certain kind of assumption about the recipient, and reflect on the communication ethics that are revealed in those kinds of decisions. So that's just one of many examples that allow people to engage in either a thought exercise or maybe a very involved, engaged analysis of communication materials, always keeping ethics at the forefront.
So what I'd like to ask next is, what obstacles or challenges do instructors face when they're teaching interpersonal communication?
I think one of the things that comes up for interpersonal communication instructors is that students often come to the interpersonal communication course with some preconceived notions about what interpersonal communication is. They do it every day. It's part of their relationships. It's part of their workplace. It's part of their family. We communicate on a daily basis. And so a lot of students come to that class thinking they already know how to communicate. It's something that is inherent to being human.
It's all common sense.
It's all very common sense, right? It's all common sense, and we already know how to do it. And I think part of the challenge in teaching this course is sort of breaking that notion that they already know how to do it and that it's just common sense, and that exposing them to this idea that this is actually a discipline where people do research and we have theories that help to explain why people communicate the way that they do, and gives names to the things that people do in their communication that are meaningful, and can teach people how to be better at the communication that they do. That just because you came in thinking you knew how to communicate, or thinking that you didn't know how to communicate and you were doomed for life, that we can teach people skills to become better at the communication that they have in their daily experiences. So kind of breaking that preconceived expectation that students have that it's just common sense, it's just communication, I do it every day, is one of the struggles that we have as instructors, to get students to think about interpersonal communication as something that can be studied scientifically and researched in a way that we do in our discipline every day.
So I think our focus on theory and research and bringing that into the textbook and translating it for students is really part of the strategy of addressing that challenge, by helping students understand that communication is simultaneously perhaps more mysterious and complicated than they thought, but also more learnable than they thought. So we kind of did problematize the experience of communication and then offer solutions to those problems. I think another challenge for people in the classroom is scholars within the field or instructors who are tied to the communication discipline. We want to share with students really interesting cutting-edge research that's going on. And yet when you're trying to move that into an introductory classroom, there can be some difficulty in translating some of the very complicated research questions that people are pursuing into terms that students can understand and can appreciate. And we've worked really hard in this book to bring what we do as communication scholars and what other scholars in the field are doing into the classroom and into the book in accessible terms. And I think it accomplishes two goals. It helps us understand communication as a scholarly domain and a scholarly discipline. And at the same time, it addresses the question and the issue that Jen was describing, where people can start to see that, oh, this is actually something that is worth studying. And I think we've all had experiences both of us had experience trying to explain to family members that we study communication. What is that? How can you do that? And to be able to show people through our textbook the communication discipline and how communication works and how you can become better at communication. It's really a driving force for us in our goals of creating this book.
It's really going to be a fantastic contribution.